My key technical analysis tools, I use Fibonacci a lot, Fibonacci retracements. I use moving averages a lot, and I use trend lines a lot.
What's up, everyone? I'm back with Jason Sen, who's been here on the podcast more than a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. It's crazy, it's been so fast. So what's up, Jason? How's it going today?
Good, fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. You're in Thailand, I think in Phuket. You told me just a few seconds before, which is awesome. How's the weather there?
Just ending the rainy season. We're heading into the dry season, which is much more pleasant, and it gets warmer, which is good.
I love that. I love that. And you were talking to me a little bit before about your story, which I think we'll focus on for this episode. Last time we talked a lot about kind of strategies, technical analysis, what you do when you look at the chart. But for this time, I want to hear your story because you went from being in college to working for banks and then trading and being in Thailand, which is like awesome. Kind of a path that lots of people want to have. So bring us back in the beginning. How was that transition from there to trading after?
Well, from college, I wrote off a load of CVs and letters to as many banks as I could to try and get a job. And I got a job at a bank called, they were called Shepherds and Chase in those days. I think they've turned into WI Car these days. I think they're still around. Anyway, 18 years old, started working on the floor of the London Stock Exchange in the London traded option market where they traded options on stocks. So that was where I got my training. Well, I say I got my training. By 6 months after I joined, from April 1987, there was a stock market crash, obviously in October, which was exciting, I suppose, for me because I'd never experienced anything like that. The market went crazy. Unfortunately, by December, I was then out of a job. So I'd only been working about 9 months, and I was made redundant because the option volumes obviously collapsed. Anyway, turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me because I managed to get a job with a market making company. So I was with a broking company at a bank, and then I got taken on by what was called they called them locals, people who traded with their own money. So it was a company that took me on, trained me up as a market maker, which was kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a trader rather than a broker. So this gave me an unexpected opportunity. And they trained me up to make markets and options, and I went from there, really.
When you say they trained you, how was that? Did they like sit with you and teach you what to do? Or was it kind of a mentor that you could go back to? How did that look like exactly?
But they had in-house training programs. You'd be assigned, well, the way it worked on any trading floor was you started off as a clerk. So, and you would stand in the pit with one of the traders and, you'd learn from him. You'd run around for him, but you'd also learn from him. He would teach you about the option strategies, here's how you put on a butterfly condor. You'd have to work out the theoretical P&L for each, strategy. So it's just going through that whole training process. And then, you'd run off the pricing sheets. You'd learn how to adjust the pricing sheets, the pricing model. And you'd also have to not only learn about the mathematics, but of course you had to actually learn how to physically trade in a pit. That was a whole separate skill, which of course you don't have to do now because it's all done on computer. And then there was huge amounts of mental arithmetic. Of course, if you're trading options nowadays, from a screen, you've got all your deltas, your gammas, your thetas, and all the other Greeks and everything else just calculated for you instantly as soon as you execute a trade. So I'm not saying it's easier, but we had to be pretty quick in those days because you're competing against other people in the pit. So the guy with the quickest brain, stood a better chance of getting the trade.
Right. And what made you decide to leave that to moving to Thailand?
Oh, wow. Okay, well, there's a whole big story in between that. So I went from the LTOM to the London International Financial Futures Exchange in the early 90s, and I started trading options on futures, which is slightly different. Great fun, a lot more aggressive. Scared the pants off me to start with, but in the end, I managed to make a career out of it. When the floor shut, I moved to Gibraltar because some trading, when options and futures trading went on screen, you could obviously move. And Gibraltar was a tax-friendly environment, shall we say. So a lot of traders moved down there. You could trade in the sun, you could live by the beach, and you could pay less tax, so that worked. I lived there for, I don't know, about 13 years, I think, until I was in my early 30s. And then, I decided to move on from Spain, so I moved to Phuket. I'd already started my technical analysis business. I started that about 10 years ago, advising banks and independent traders on giving them trade signals, that kind of thing. And I figured that I could live in Thailand and do that. I was used to getting up in Spain at 4 in the morning to get everything done by the the UK and European Open. So I thought, hey, if I live in Thailand, I can actually get up at 7 and still have everything ready for the European Open. So that works really well for me. I can have a relatively normal life in that respect.
Love that. And so, for people that kind of are trading now, and they might think that they have to kind of go forward with other businesses. I think you're doing a good job because you incorporate both. So you trade, but also have your reports that you create every day or every week. How did that start exactly, and what do you think is necessary to start that and make money from it, in your opinion?
Well, actually, the service started because a friend of mine opened a broking office, a derivatives broking office in Gibraltar. He said, hey, you live down there. I need some good brokers. Why don't you come and work for me? So I said, sure. What he didn't know is that I was already studying technical analysis. I was trading and I was kind of trying to make it work. So when he heard about this, he said, hey, why don't you advise our clients? So when they execute orders, they'll know, maybe where the best levels are to hedge their options, that kind of thing. So he threw me on the Bloomberg terminal and I started advising these guys. I was like, this is a good support level. If you need to buy some futures here, this might be a good place. Anyway, it worked. They really liked it. And it was quite exciting for me. So then I thought, hey, I think I can make a business out of this. And in the end, when I left, the clients subscribed to my service. So I had companies like Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank, Merrill Lynch, all signing up. So yeah, it was quite exciting. It was a really good start for me. Right from the word go, I had some sort of real blue chip companies paying me for the service, and I'd sit on my computer at home all day on the Bloomberg terminal, throwing out the levels for them, and they'd get their written reports in the morning, which is of course what I still do.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that any trader could do this, or is something you have to kind of develop the skills to do?
I'm quite sure that any trader with experience who has a track record of making good calls could do this. And I mean, I think there's hundreds, maybe thousands of people out there on Twitter and everything else throwing out their signals. The problem that you find is that anyone who's traded for 3 months thinks, hey, I'm going to now set up a business and do this. And the thing is, they tend not to last very long. I've seen hundreds of people come and go trying to sell signals, and I see more and more people trying to set it up. But unless you're established, I think it's difficult to sell a service now. I mean, I find it difficult to sell my service, and I've been doing it for 10 years, and I've got a strong reputation. I've got nearly 8,000 followers on Twitter. I've got a big track record, and even still, to try to get new subscribers is very difficult. I mean, it's not an easy business, but I've made it work.
Yeah, exactly. And when talking about the track record, I think some people might think that they have to achieve like this certain level of income or certain level of like return per year. How do you see this? Is there like a threshold where above this you're good to, let's say, teach people or sell something, or is it like dependent on different things?
Actually, that's quite a good question. I think it's all about credibility, of course. People have got to believe you and see that you're actually the genuine article. I get the way I know about what else goes on in the industry is because I get a lot of emails from people. Oh, can you help me? I paid this guy to help me trade, and he completely ripped me off, or he lost a load of money. He told me to buy this and sell that. And, there are so many. I know there's a lot of crooks out there, but there's also a lot of people who are inexperienced and don't know what they're doing. And unfortunately, people get sucked in. There's a lot of slick marketing out there by people who don't really know what they're doing. So you've got to be really, really careful. And it's unfortunate because I see so many people who've lost significant amounts of money. I mean, I'm talking tens of thousands. I even know a couple of people who lost hundreds of thousands of pounds from these kind of guys. Anyway, that will always happen. Unfortunately, people will always be out there to take your money, and it's an easy industry for people to target people. Okay, so if you want to set up a business and do it the way I'm doing it, actually making too much money, I think, destroys your credibility because people think, well, hang on a sec, is this guy really making 100% a month? And if he is, what the hell is he trying to sell a service for at £100 a month? The guy must be making absolutely millions. So, and if you are making that kind of money on a relatively small account, if you're making 100, 200% or some of these silly numbers, you're doing something that it will eventually blow you up. You can't sustain that in the long term. A realistic target, I've got 2 traders that work for me, and they're very good. They're very experienced. They've got a fantastic strategy. They know you only risk 1%, maybe maximum 2% on a trade. They keep it very tight. And, if they make 10, 15% a month, they've had a good month. That's what I like to see. No one wants to see the big up 100%, down 50%. Not many people have got the stomach for that. I certainly haven't. I'm too old for it. So that's the kind of thing I'm aiming for. A relatively steady, profit line. Yeah, that's all I can say really. I mean, I did do an experiment in July where on Twitter I ran a little poll for my Twitter followers. What's the average to find out what the average account size is for retail traders and what they expect to make per month, and it's really quite small. It's around $1,000 for it would appear the average account size, and people are trying to make $200 a day, which is unrealistic. Anyway, so what I did was I put £2,000 in an IG account and I traded it. Now I took more risk than anyone should take because my rule is 1% on a trade. I was doing more than that. I was risking 5% on a trade. And then I got the account up to £16,000 within a month. And every day I was posting the trades and posting the P&L. It was great fun, really great fun. And that actually led to a load of subscriptions. But I'll be honest, I don't trade every day, every week these days. I'm 50 years old. I've been doing it for 30 years, and I don't really want to sit in front of a screen all day, every day anymore. I'm trying to take a bit of a back seat and certainly avoid stress. But I enjoy the analysis. I really enjoy that.
And that's the thing you have to figure out, like what exactly you want to do in that business. You could trade, you could do something different, but it's about kind of what you love and doing it. So totally agree with that.
Yeah, sure. And I do enjoy the analysis. For me is a good challenge. I feel a desperate responsibility to get it right for my clients, my bank clients and my retail clients. And also I'm quite enjoying forming a trading company and having 2 or 3 traders starting to work for me and with their own strategies, but they also sometimes look at my ideas. So yeah, that's where I really want to go now, managing. I've been asked regularly to manage accounts for people, 100 grand, that sort of size. So I'm looking to build that quite significantly next year.
Mm-hmm. So how does that work? Because I guess it's hard to find a balance between telling people what to trade, but letting them trade what they know. So how do you work with this? You just tell them trade this money, or how is that?
That's a very good question. Because I've traded for so long, I know that a trader wants no interference whatsoever. If I hire good traders, I do not dream about telling them what to do, what to look at, how to think, nothing. I just leave them alone. I try not to speak to them at all. If they want me, they contact me. But otherwise, if they're losing money, I know damn well the last thing they want is me going, hey, you're losing money. Of course they know they're losing money. And if I talk to them, that's just going to add pressure. I let them work it out themselves. If they come to me and they're like, oh, I'm having a tough time, my head's all over the place. Okay, I'll say, let's have a chat. I'll try to calm them down, get them straight, figure out a strategy to get them out of trouble. Otherwise, I just leave them alone. I've hired smart guys and they do not need me on their case. So yeah, I just leave them alone. And I see my role as be liaising with the investors and the brokers and doing all the other stuff so the trader just gets to sit and trade and do nothing else. I believe that's the way that this will be successful.
Yeah, and I think this really helps with the fact that if you're kind of all over the place as a trader, like you have things to work on in different parts, it's really hard to focus and trade well. So that's a good thing. But I'm wondering, isn't that the opposite of like what a bank would do? Like they would show up and tell that person who never lost to kind of correct things, no?
Yeah, a bank has a different structure. I've never traded for a bank, to be fair, so I don't really know. But I know that the bank has huge support systems, and that definitely works. They obviously have their in-house analysts, they have their in-house risk managers, they have their desk managers. They've got so many different layers of management. It must work because banks, generally make a lot of money and traders do very well. And I know of bank traders who have left and tried to trade on their own, and they simply could not make it work. So that support system that exists in banks obviously does work. I have a different approach because I've always been a retail trader, or I've always been a trader that's been backed by. I had financial backing, but I didn't work for a bank. And my backer was very good. He left me alone and just let me get on with it. If I took a big loss and I needed to talk to him, he'd be there for me. He'd always try and encourage me because he knew that eventually I will probably make it back. And that's my philosophy. I wasn't that disciplined, to be fair. My traders are extremely disciplined. I know that when I'm asleep, I'm not going to wake up and find they've just done 10% of the account. They're not like that. So I can trust them.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between trading in like a bank or institution as opposed to being a retail trader. People have different ways of thinking and seeing things, I guess. So maybe in a bank it works to have like a support system and like a lot of checkups, but as a retail trader maybe it doesn't work that well. So yeah, that works fine.
Banks obviously have a different trade strategy. They're not in it to nick 20 pips on a trade. Generally, I'm sure they're in there for swing trade opportunities and they're building positions and blah blah blah. Whereas for example, my guys, they're scalpers. If they can nick 20 pips in the trade in an hour, they're happy and they move on to the next trade. Very, very short term. They don't run positions overnight. It's all very low risk. So yeah, you're right. It's a completely different strategy. The whole operation is a different structure.
What I've seen in like the last year is that a lot of people want to be able to trade for someone else, like for an investor. And so if someone was to try to find someone to trade for, how do you recommend they go about it? Should they kind of contact people? What should they do exactly?
Well, first thing they should do is contact me, because I've been doing it for 30 years and I know what I'm doing. Okay, if you're going to look for an account manager, well, the first thing you never do is, if you think you found someone, you do not send them your money. You open up an account in your name and you give them access to the account. And then you can watch what they're trading constantly. You need to have full transparency. There are so many scams out there. Let's say I wanted to run a scam. Let's say you've come along to me and you're like, hey, I've got 100 grand. What do you want to do? Yeah, I'll trade it. I want 20% of whatever I make. Great. Another guy comes along. Hey, I've got 100 grand. Can you trade this for me? Sure, no problem. I'll take 20% profit on whatever I make. Now, what's to stop me going and selling a load of DAX futures for you and buying a load of DAX futures for him? Someone's going to blow up their account. The other one's going to make an absolute fortune. Either way, I'm going to get paid. So, there are scams out there like that. If you don't find someone reputable, like myself, you could be subject to a scam that you're not even aware of. So you must be in control of the account. You must never let that money leave your hands, and you must monitor it all the time, unless you really, really trust what's going on. And I trust my traders, so I know that's fine. But it's a dangerous, dangerous world. I've heard all the scams.
Mm-hmm. And what about the opposite? So let's say a trader that wants to trade for someone else, someone like you.
Oh, I see. Well, come to me. Yeah, come find someone who can provide the finance. There's a lot of places out there that can provide finance, and I think that's more and more increasing.
Yeah,
I think
it's pretty obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty good. And then just build a track record slowly. Don't try and make a fortune overnight, because that's not what investors are looking for anyway. They're looking for a slow, steady trajectory on their P&L curve. They don't want sleepless nights. They don't want any nasty surprises. So just be happy. Risk 1%. If you make 1% a day, that's awesome. 20% a month, someone's going to be over the moon with that, and you're not expected to make that. If you make 5 or 10% a month, most people would be all over you with significant sums of money. It's definitely a marathon. It's not a sprint trading.
And I found out for myself that people care a lot more about the risk than the return you show them. Like, you show them a big return, but a big risk, they won't like it. But show them a small return and a kind of small risk, they'll like it. So
absolutely right.
That?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
In terms of track record, let's say, how long back would you like to see this? Is it like 1 year is a good period, or more than that?
To be honest, 3 months would be fine, because you're looking for the strategy and you're looking for the risk management. So if I've got if I meet someone and he makes 5-10% a month, he might have 3 losing trades in a row, but he only loses 3%. And when he gets 2 winning trades, he makes 2% on each trade. Those are the sort of numbers you're looking for. The losses are pretty small, so even if he has 10 losses in a row, he's only going to lose 5-10%. Not a disaster. As soon as he gets a winning streak, he'll be up 10-20%, looking good. I want to sleep at night. I don't want to be thinking, wow, I don't want to wake up in the morning and see this guy's just done 10% overnight. So keep the numbers small and keep it steady. And if you've had a losing streak, don't be afraid to say, wow, I need to back off, re-examine my strategy, have a rethink. Maybe the markets are trading sideways and you're a directional trader, so you need to wait for a breakout or something like that. There's nothing wrong with taking a break and then starting again when the conditions are right for you.
Yeah. The thing is, I'm not sure you can really know this and learn this in only 3 months of trading. I'm not sure that really works well. Like, you don't really know the subtleties of like when you have to stop and when you have to go back necessarily.
That's true. That's very.
How do you kind of people learn this exactly, or learn to really trade for a living and be able to trade for someone else?
Well, experience counts for everything. There's no question of that. With trading, I think you really learn by trial and error. You can do. I've written a course, and I'd like to say that it's a very good course. I mean, I've had hundreds of people do it. I've had no complaints. It takes a long time to go through my course. I've written It's hours and hours and hours and hours, and you won't get it the first time you go over it. You'll have to go over each module 2 or 3 times, and you'll keep learning more and more. I mean, that alone, really, if you're going to do it properly, that's going to take you 3 months to get through my course. And until you've educated yourself, you can't even begin to trade. So let's say you do a course, any course, it doesn't have to be mine. So you understand the basics of technical analysis. Maybe you've moved on to some advanced technical analysis. For me, technical analysis is the only way to spot trade ideas and understand where to put your stops and your targets. So you really have to at least figure out your own strategy based on technical analysis. And once you've done that, even if you're a master at working out which direction the markets are going to go, and by the way, that isn't the key to trading, but even if you are a master at that, that's just the beginning. Then you have to understand about account management, risk management, trade management, exit, moving your stops, blah, 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 all the stuff that professional traders understand. And that is a long journey in itself. In my course, actually, the second half of my course is totally dedicated to that. So, it is trial and error. You can learn all the theory, you can have all your rules on the wall next to you, and you can read through them every morning, but your emotions always take over. So, it's a trial and error thing, and you have to keep a trading journal, try not to make the same mistakes again. And like you say, it takes time. It takes way more than 3 months.
Yeah, and I think the best way to learn is through these kind of bad experiences or these tough times where you kind of learn to not do this the next time. So
exactly. I think most things in life you really only learn from your mistakes, and the more painful that lesson is, then the more you're going to remember that mistake. But one of the keys for me about trading is to trade such small size that when you do make losses, they don't hurt you too badly. Okay, make sure you learn the lesson, but you can't afford to suffer, a 5% loss on one trade, because you're going to be quickly in a hole then. It won't take long before you're down 25, 30%, and then you're in a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about a little bit Thailand, because I know you've been there for some time. I know it's a really good place to live, I think, in my opinion, so far. So what do you think of the advantage of living there as a trader? Anything that kind of stands out?
Well, obviously, I like living in a warm climate. So it's hot and humid here, and I enjoy that. It's hot all year round. I like putting on a pair of shorts every day, and that's it. I open up my laptop, get to work in a pair of shorts, so that's cool. Jump in the swimming pool. The cost of living is very low here, so I like the lifestyle. If you don't like the heat, you wouldn't want to be here. Also, the time zones really work for me, as I said, because I can get it takes me about 3 hours to write all my analysis in the morning. So if I start at 7ish, I'm done by 10 a.m., which is only about 3 a.m. in the morning UK time. So I've got everything ready for all my subscribers, and then I can have a bit of lunch, wait for the European markets to open. So it works fine for me. But in a way, that's one of the reasons why I don't trade, because if I do trade, I can trade the afternoon session, which is really only catching the European morning session. By 6, 7 o'clock at night, I can't really be bothered to trade, and that's when the US is starting to open, and that's when you get some good action. But if I keep trading then I'm going to be up till midnight. I'm going to have positions overnight. I'm going to be waking up in the middle of the night, looking at my phone, checking where the markets are. I've done that for so many years. I just don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to hand it over to the young guys, let them crack on with it, and I'm just going to be the manager and deal with the investors.
Yeah, it's a different lifestyle. I've seen a few people in Asia that kind of stop to trade after some time because they do it like for a long time at night or in the evening and in the night following. But then it just gets draining, so they kind of stop after some time, which I totally understand. I wouldn't do that either, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm a morning person. I'm not a night person. I can work really well, and I can get up at 4 or 5 o'clock and work really, really well, but by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm like done.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the skills you think traders should develop? Like, are there anything about, let's say trading for someone else, like they would trade for you. What would be the skills they have to develop?
Okay. Firstly, they've got to have a lot of patience, because trading opportunities don't come up every minute of every day or even every hour of every day. You really have got to be prepared to sit on your hands and wait for your strategy to generate the signal. And that's very difficult to do, because in most jobs, the harder you work, the more effort you put in, the more active you are, the more productive you are, and the better you will do. But with trading, a lot of it is sitting around and waiting and doing nothing. And you think, wow, I'm missing an opportunity to make some money here, but you're actually not. You really only need to trade once a day to make a decent profit. So that's important. Discipline is everything. I've always struggled with discipline. It's a personal problem for me with trading discipline. In my life, I'm very disciplined, but for some reason, my trading, I run my trades too far. For example, I get greedy, So discipline is important. Knowing where you're going to exit the trade before you even enter it. I think those are the two key things, because within those headings comes account management, trade management, um, trading the right size, all those things. Those are the most important things.
Yeah. And usually what I see is that when you prepare yourself to trade for other people, like trade for yourself, for example, you can trade after that for only you, like only yourself. Because you've prepared yourself to trade for other people, trading other people's money. And that's, I think, like another level as opposed to trading only for yourself. Which I think makes sense. So, people should aim for that. And then they can trade for themselves after if they want.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. I think in some ways trading for someone else installs more discipline in you, because you know you're being watched, and you can't mess around or they're going to stop you trading. The problem is when you're trading for yourself, you can think, I'm going to run that trade a bit more, and I'll move my stop and do all the things that you shouldn't do because no one's watching over you.
Exactly, exactly. Are there any kind of question that you get a lot by email of people that you would like to address? Maybe like things that people ask all the time. Maybe some myths that you see, or
Wow, let me think. I usually get questions about technical analysis, things like how do I trade a breakout? And I hate that question because there's no, there's no rule. I can't say, oh, that's easy. You just, as soon as it does this, you do that. So, for technical analysis is an art, not a science, really, in my opinion. So a lot of it is down to the trader. And, I know that some traders have a breakout strategy. They only trade breakouts, and I can understand why, because once the market breaks out, you can often get a really nice quick move. But the problem is, I know that these guys might put the trade on 2 or 3 times before they actually manage to catch the move. So, as I say, it's an art, it's not a science, and technical analysis has to really be made to work for the person that's doing it. Everyone has a different style. You can show a chart to 20 different technical analysts, and they'll all see something different in it. They'll all see a different opportunity. They'll all see, the guys that work for me have their own strategies that are brilliant and that I don't really fully understand. I could sit there and learn from them. What's the point? They know what they're doing, and then their strategies are nothing to do with the way I look at a market, which I find fascinating. It's amazing.
and for people starting out, it's not that easy to understand that they cannot just have a strategy and then trade profitably all the time. That they're gonna have some drawdowns and stuff coming along the way.
Absolutely. And as I said earlier, you've got to make sure that the conditions are right for you. I'm a swing trader. I'm a swing trader basically because I'm lazy. I want to find an opportunity and be able to put a trade on and leave it to run for 2 or 3 days and see if I can make some decent money out of that. What I don't want to do is sit there and scalp for 10, 20, 30 pips all the time, in and out, in and out, as I say, because I'm lazy. So, for example, right now, August, September, and even October, I'm talking about Forex markets, have been so many pairs have been in relatively tight ranges, only moving sideways. They go up for a day or two, then they turn around and go down for a day, and then they turn around and go up. That's not my kind of market. I really can't make money like that. So I don't have the patience to sit there and do it. So yeah, you've got to identify when the market conditions suit your character or your strategy, and then jump in and then be ready to take a step back when things are not perhaps suitable for you personally.
Hmm. How will you find out that things are changing? Would you kind of go back every week to see the ranges, or maybe trade less but still show up every day to look at the chart?
Yeah, good question. What I try to do is try to spot a sideways trend as quickly as possible, which unfortunately these days is quite easy to do because so many markets are trading sideways. Yeah, I'm actually focusing on stocks lately because they've been great fun. Um, yeah, I think you've just got to be yeah, it's difficult. I'm not really sure I can answer that question. You just sort of you have to be aware. Just be aware. Hey, is the market now consolidating, or are we about to break out? That's really all you can do.
And this should be kind of something you do, let's say, every morning, kind of a routine. Because if you do it only once, then you don't think about it for a month, it might change a lot. You might miss a lot of things. So that's why it's
Yeah,
kind of
you're
important,
right.
I think, to have this routine of things that you do. Yeah.
A routine in the morning is definitely a good idea, and one important thing is to look through different time periods. On your so if you're a short-term trader, you might be looking at a 5-minute chart, 15, a 30-minute, and an hour chart. Look at 3 or 4 different time periods. Try and get a broad view of the market. Don't get too narrow-minded. You're focusing on that 5-minute chart, and that's the whole world in your little on your screen. You can get sucked into too short term.
You mentioned earlier being really disciplined outside trading. Do you think you have any habits or discipline that help you in trading, but that are not really related necessarily?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a creature of habit, so I get up at the same time every day. Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good to have structure in your life, no matter who you are. I think human beings need routine, and they like a schedule. They like to know what they're doing, and yeah, you've got to have discipline. So I get up. I do pretty much the same thing every day. In fact, when I wake up, once I've actually managed to open my eyes after 10 minutes, I actually can't wait to get to my screen, see the markets, see what's going on, and crack on with it. And I must admit, after 3 hours of doing it, then I'm ready for a break.
I love that, love that. Any advice or lesson you think that you have to pass on to people that they would need to have or understand?
All I would say is devote as much time as you can to trading and to technical analysis. Experience is everything. I've been doing I've been trading for over 30 years, and I've been doing technical analysis for over 10 years. And even after every sort of 6 months, I think, wow, I kind of noticed something that I didn't notice before. Something, subconsciously you're noticing little patterns and things in your mind. So it's really just a question of putting in the hours. They say 10,000 hours makes you an expert, but and I would probably agree with that. With technical analysis, 10,000 hours would be good experience. I don't know. I'm guessing I'm not a sportsman, but I'm guessing a footballer develops a sixth sense on the pitch as to where the ball's going to go and how it's going to bounce, and what this, how this defender is going to move. And as I say, I'm not a football player, so I'm only guessing. But you develop these senses. It definitely works in trading. You develop. You sort of think, I've seen this before. This market's done this before, and I think now this is going to happen. And that's often the way things work.
And that's not 10,000 hours of reading trading books. It's more about practicing and going in the market and seeing the charts.
You must read. You must educate yourself. People think that, trading, how hard can it be? You turn the computer on, you either buy it or you sell it. It's either going to go up or it's going to go down. If I buy it and it goes up, I'm going to make money. If it goes down, I'll just put my stop in and I'm done. And they think, how hard can it be? And the problem is a lot of people start with beginner's luck and they make a lot of money and think, I knew this was easy. And then the old story, I get all the emails. Yeah, I started really well and then I blew it all. It's part of the process. So, one, educate yourself as much as possible. Do read the books about psychology and trade management and technical analysis and all the different aspects of trading, and there are many. Then start on a demo account and try to put it all into practice. And there's a lot to put into practice when it's like when you start driving a car. It looks so simple when someone's driving a car. Steering wheel, gear stick, brake, accelerator. When you get in a car, you're like, wow, there is a lot to do in the car. And then outside of the car, it's like, wow, there's traffic everywhere. Obviously, eventually you get it, and you can do that while thinking about something else. But it's difficult to put it all together at first. And trading's like that when you start. There is a hell of a lot going on in your head.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And we'll make sure to put the link to your course below and everything you're doing. But how can people find you if they want to connect with you or reach out after the podcast or the interview?
Okay, so my website is daytradeideas.co.uk. You can just Google my name, Jason Sen, S-E-N. I'm all over the internet, so I'm very easy to find. I'm on Twitter, which is @daytradesignals. I'm on YouTube. I'm on everything. I'm not hard to find.
Perfect. And I want to make this really tactical, because I want people to apply what they learned in the podcast. And what would be one thing they have to apply after listening to your interview? Like, what's one thing they can do today or this week to become better traders?
Good question. I could plug my course there, but I won't. Let me think. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. My key technical analysis tools, I use Fibonacci a lot, Fibonacci retracements. I use moving averages a lot, and I use trend lines a lot. I use the slow stochastic. I keep an eye on it. I don't fully base a trade on it, but I use it just as an extra indicator. I use candlestick patterns, candlestick formations. So if I was going to say to someone, yeah, you want to get cracking, I would focus on learning about those first and putting them into practice on your charts. don't overload your charts with a load of indicators. I think it's what a lot of people do when they start. They're like, oh yeah, I'll have a MACD and I'll have a and I'll learn with all these indicators. When they all line up, I'm going to make a fortune. And it's just information overload. And you, in the end, you're just like, I don't know what to do now. I can't make a decision. So you got to keep it simple.
Love that. Jason Sen, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure to have you back on the podcast.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.